Good morning and assalamu alaikum. So I wanted to do a quick kind of update in terms of preparing the land and how it's looking, and to kind of show you the different stages, because previous videos I've talked through the stages but I haven't actually physically showed you how they look. So this bed here is basically the final stage, and I'm gonna kind of, because I'm quite blessed to have each bed at each different stages, so you can actually see how it develops. So let's just say around there is stage one. So you got all of these grassy areas, So at stage one, what you will do is you would use your hoe, this particular one here, to remove all of the grass. Now, I really do recommend you spending time to do this process, because grass like this, the roots are very, very thick. So you want to really definitely invest, because this has got a really good blade and it will literally cut through, and you can basically pull it up. I've dumped it at the compost bin, but I wish I can show you how thick these roots are. So that's stage one. That will bring you over here to this here, which is here, which is stage two. So after you've done stage one, I would say rest for about a few days. Your body's probably going to feel it as well, so that gives your body and your back to recover. Then stage two would be actually loosening up the soil, because at stage one you don't actually loosen up the soil, you just cut the roots. So when you cut the roots, it will basically look like this. It will be hard soil with the roots, majority of the roots, like the root ball would be out. So you want to turn it from something like this, which is hard and compact, to something like this. Now, in terms of technique, if it's a day like today where it has rained all night, where there's thunderstorms all night, then I would just break up the soil with this, because it will be easier to cut through and slice. And again, it's just about trying to break up the soil and make it crumbly, and to look at any roots that you've left behind. So stuff like something like this, if you leave this behind, that will just grow back into another jungle again. So the focus is to really trying to get the roots out. Then after that, you let it settle for a few days, and it would look something like this. Now let me get my fork. So it will settle again, but the difference is it's gone from something like this, where it's compact, to something like this, where your fork can kind of sink through. But still, it sinks through, but if you notice, the fork hasn't sink all the way through. Now you can leave it at this stage, but for me, I like to get things done properly and have it done just once. I know that I like to grow stuff like carrots and roots crops, which really loves a free draining soil. So I do an extra step. And the reason why I do this is because even though you look here, it may look clear, but I can guarantee you there are roots, grass roots, that have been left behind, subsoil. So if I leave that behind, what's going to happen is this will start to happen. Now these are a few that I've left behind, and already you're seeing grass starting to poke its head through. Now I'm just going to just pull that, and this is me doing the extra stage. So can you imagine if you don't do that extra stage, within a week you just have grass growing again, and then you get frustrated. Whilst when you do it properly, this has been left for weeks, and yet yes, the grass are coming along the edges, but that's because I haven't concentrated on the edges. But in between, you don't see much grass coming through, maybe just a couple of specks here and there, which are obviously roots that I've missed. But in the long run, honestly, it makes such a big difference. So again, like I said, I won't stop here. I will go the extra stage, and that takes me over to this side. Now, I've tried to do half and half so you can see how I start the process and how I finish the process. So what this process is again me just removing any extra roots. Now, you can't really see it, but some of these roots, they can be as long as this. And the only way you're going to get it is if you have your fork get down below the subsoil. So these are the kind of roots that I'm taking out of the soil, as you can see. Second thing is, right now again, it's had a beautiful downpour, so the soil looks really, really moist, but it looks moist on top. When you get your fork down and go down to the subsoil, it's bone dry. So in a situation where you have a really, really hot summer and there isn't any rain, you're going to be seeing that a lot of people's crops are going to really, really suffer, because what people do is they just water from the top and they spray on the top, but the absorption rate, the water isn't fully penetrating all the way down, it's just sitting on top, so again, people say, well, I water 2 or 3 times, but my plants are dying, or my sweet corn's not growing, or my cucumber is not as juicy. And that's because I feel like they haven't gone as far down. So I want to show you again. This is me digging it over once, but let me show you once it's dug over twice. I can put my fork further down, and that's the depth that I feel comfortable with, because again, this is ground level. I'm going to be putting homemade compost on top, so my compost acts like a mulch. So if you can see from this angle, it almost looks like a dome. So I know that this is well done. And how I do that is, what I will do is, when it's at this stage, which is here now, I sprinkle homemade compost on top. So this is compost for my worms. These are all worm castings. I sprinkle homemade compost on top, and what I will do is that I will use my fork to dig again sub-level and turn it. So now the compost is now underneath, and by doing that, you will notice that now when I water, what the compost is doing is it acts like a sponge and soaks that water underneath and slow down the channels of the water, so that the ground has enough time to be able to absorb all of that, and it breaks up the clay soil as well. So I can just twist that clay soil and it's just nice and crumbly. So it's almost like a double action. As you can see, look at the difference between that and that just sunk right in. So, and then that leads me to my final stage. So once I do this, I will leave it for a couple of days, and when I'm ready to start planting in, I would then get my compost and then pile it on top, and that's what this final stage is. So in this bed I will be planting my tomato plants that was gifted to me actually by my neighbor on my allotment, and that's what I'll be planting in this region. And yeah, and now you know, from next year onwards, you don't have to do any of this stage. You don't have to keep cutting the grass. Like I see people every year, year after year, cutting their grass, turning their soil, turning the land. If anything, next year just add a bit of compost and you're good to go, because the moisture is getting right into the ground now and the life is coming back into the soil. You're going to be seeing worms coming in there, living in there, all kind of biodiversity in your soil. And as you're making your own compost and you're putting it on each year, it's just getting better and better and better, inshallah. So yeah, so these are the 5 stages, and you've seen it in one video. So cut, break up, cultivate, remove any last bit of roots, and then compost and plant and enjoy.